What are you actually looking at on your screen? A wooden gavel striking a desk with absolute finality. A black man with a piercing, frozen gaze, draped in a black robe, standing on an elevated bench as the ultimate representative of American justice. That is, Judge Boyd. This video has amassed millions of views and tens of thousands of comments from people celebrating as an arrogant defendant is crushed without mercy. But there is a truth your brain has intentionally ignored in exchange for a moment of satisfaction. This courtroom never existed. Judge Boyd is not a government appointed official, and the trembling defendant is actually an actor following a script. So, why, even knowing it is fake, do millions of people crave for this cold punishment to be real? Why has Judge Boyd's coldest judgment become a sweet poison for the mass psyche? We are living in an era where real world justice often feels slow, bureaucratic, and at times utterly powerless. When you see scammers and criminals walking free due to legal loopholes, a black hole of resentment begins to form in your mind. This is exactly when Judge Boyd appears as a digital savior. This content is not just entertainment, it is a psychological surgery on the concept of power. Judge Boyd is constructed as an immovable force, uncompromising with evil, ready to deliver the coldest judgments to restore order. Let's analyze the authority performance technique used here. Everything from the low-angle shots looking up at the judge, the echoing boom of the gavel, to the way Judge Boyd uses sharp, surgical language to humiliate the defendant's immorality. It is a perfect formula to trigger the emotional kill switches of fairness. Audiences aren't watching to learn about the American legal system. They are watching to see their own egos validated. They want a world where the villain has no escape. The success of Judge Boyd is living proof of the fracture between public trust and the actual judicial system. When the real system fails you, you seek out a perfect script where justice is served in 10 minutes. But what is the price of believing in this simulation? It is the erosion of your ability to distinguish between truth and a performance designed for engagement. Judge Boyd is not just a character. He is a mirror reflecting our desperate hunger for accountability, even if it's just an illusion built from light and sound. In the world of viral media, authority is not something you earn through a law degree. It is something you perform through a lens. When you watch a Judge Boyd video, your subconscious isn't checking for a bar association license. It is scanning for symbols: the black robe, the mahogany bench, the heavy gavel, and the American flag positioned perfectly in the background. These are not just props, they are psychological anchors. We strip away the drama to look at the cold, hard mechanics of how this fictional justice is sold to your brain. Why does a man sitting behind a desk have the power to make your heart race? Because the creators of Judge Boyd understand a fundamental flaw in human evolution: our deep-seated primal obedience to the symbols of the sovereign. Let's talk about the cold gaze technique. Notice how the camera often lingers on Judge Boyd's face while he remains silent. He doesn't fidget. He doesn't smile. He stares down the defendant with a predatory stillness. This is a calculated use of high-status nonverbal communication. In psychological terms, the person who moves the least in a room is perceived as the one with the most power. By remaining stoic while the actor-defendant panics, the video forces you to align your emotions with the judge. You begin to crave his words. You want him to break the silence because that silence feels like a weight on your own chest. This is the authority vacuum, a technique used to make the audience desperate for a resolution, for a sentence, for a strike of the gavel. Furthermore, consider the verbal execution. Judge Boyd doesn't just read a sentence. He deconstructs the defendant's character. He uses words like disgrace, accountability, and consequences as if they were physical weapons. This is designed to trigger your moral outrage circuit. When he speaks, he isn't talking to the actor in front of him. He is talking to the millions of people behind the screen who have felt wronged by someone in their own lives. He becomes the avatar for your unspoken anger. Every time he delivers a cold judgment, he is scratching an itch that real-world legal systems leave untouched. This is the brilliance of the Judge Boyd script. It simulates a world where power is absolute, where the truth is immediate, and where the bad guy is finally, visibly, and brutally put in his place. You aren't watching a trial. You are watching a ritual of dominance designed to keep you clicking, sharing, and believing in the illusion of a digital hammer. Why does the human brain reward us with a hit of dopamine when Judge Boyd delivers a harsh, unyielding sentence? To understand this, we must look at the concept of justice fantasy. In the real world, the legal system is a labyrinth of paperwork, plea deals, and technicalities. It is a place where a criminal might walk free on a procedural error and where victims often feel unheard. This reality creates a chronic state of moral frustration in the public. Enter Judge Boyd. He represents the antidote to this frustration. We dissect the dangerous allure of a courtroom where there are no gray areas, only absolute right and absolute wrong. The Judge Boyd videos are engineered to provide emotional closure that real life denies us. When the actor playing the defendant begins to lie or act entitled, the script ensures that Judge Boyd catches them immediately. He is omniscient. He sees through the deception instantly. This satisfies our primal need for an all knowing authority who cannot be fooled. In reality, judges are human, bound by strict rules of evidence. But in the Boyd verse, the rules are secondary to the moral truth. This is why millions of viewers leave comments like, "We need a judge like this in every city." They are not asking for a lawyer, they are asking for a punisher. They are craving a world where the sword of justice is always sharp and never misses its mark. Observe the sentence climax in these videos. Judge Boyd doesn't just give time, he gives a lecture. He shames the defendant in a way that feels like a collective victory for the audience. This is proxy satisfaction. You, the viewer, might have been cheated by a contractor, ignored by a boss, or wronged by a neighbor. Since you couldn't get justice in your own life, you watch Judge Boyd deliver it to a stranger. The fake courtroom becomes a theater of catharsis. However, there is a dark side to this fantasy. By consuming these scripted trials, we are being conditioned to favor vengeance over due process. We start to value the spectacle of punishment more than the integrity of the law. Judge Boyd isn't just a viral sensation. He is a symptom of a society that has lost faith in its institutions and has begun to seek refuge in a digital mirage of absolute power. In the mechanics of viral authority, language is not used to communicate, it is used to dominate. While a real world judge is bound by the neutral, often sterile precision of legal statutes, the script of Judge Boyd operates on the linguistic blade. Every sentence is a surgical strike designed not to evaluate a crime, but to puncture the defendant's ego and moral standing. When the voice from the bench declares, "You didn't just break a law, you shattered the safety of every family on this road," the objective isn't legal clarity, it is a moral execution performed for a global audience. This is the power of the absolute voice. By replacing complex legal codes with universal moral truths, the character makes justice feel immediate and visceral. The script utilizes labeling techniques, branding a defendant as arrogant, shameful, or cowardly to bypass the viewer's logical filters and trigger an instinctive emotional response. This is a masterclass in power dynamics. The entity that controls the labels controls the reality. Once a label is cast, the audience accepts it as an objective fact, effectively convicting the individual in the court of public opinion long before any formal judgment is rendered. A critical component of this dominance is interruption control. Notice how the script never allows a defendant to offer a full explanation. Each attempt at defense is met with a sharp, calculated "I am speaking." This is more than courtroom decorum. It is the systematic silencing of the opposition to create an authority vacuum. In the psychology of high-stakes communication, the person who controls the silence is the one who holds the power. By stripping the defendant of their voice, the narrative ensures that only one truth remains standing. This fulfills a deep-seated desire in the viewer to see entitled or deceptive individuals forced into submission. It is a simulated ritual of dominance where the audience, through the judge, finally feels in control of a world that often feels chaotic and unjust. Every cold, sharp word is a demonstration that in this digital arena, authority is absolute and the sword of justice never blunts. The most uncomfortable truth about the Judge Boyd phenomenon isn't that the courtroom is a set or that the cases are scripted. It is that the audience is a willing accomplice in the deception. There is a specific psychological term for this: suspension of disbelief for moral gratification. We live in a world where complexity often masks injustice. We see corporate scandals end in settlements without admissions of guilt. We see political figures evade accountability through bureaucratic stalling. This creates a starvation for clarity. When you click on a video titled Judge Boyd's Coldest Judgment, you aren't looking for a documentary. You are entering a voluntary simulation where the messy reality of the law is replaced by the satisfying sharp edge of a sword. Why do millions of people defend these videos in the comments, even when confronted with evidence of their fictional nature? It is because the emotional truth of the scene outweighs the literal truth of the production. To the human subconscious, the feeling of seeing a bully silenced by a powerful authority figure is more real than a dry, factual report from a legitimate courthouse. This is the validation loop. The creators of the Judge Boyd persona understand that if they can make you feel a certain way, specifically a sense of righteous vindication, your brain will reward you with a sense of certainty. In that moment, the fact that the judge is an actor becomes irrelevant. The script has successfully hacked your moral compass to ensure engagement. Furthermore, these videos exploit the halo effect of the judicial bench. The mere sight of the robe and the gavel triggers an ancestral respect for the high judge, a figure who historically held the power of life and death. By performing this role with such icy conviction, the character of Judge Boyd taps into our collective memory of what authority should look like. We don't want a judge who weighs evidence. We want a judge who confirms our biases. We want to see the bad person suffer. This desire for televised vengeance is a dark reflection of our own inner frustrations. By cheering for a fake punishment, we are participating in a digital coliseum where the roar of the like button replaces the thumbs down of the Roman crowds. We aren't just viewers. We are the silent jurors in a theater of power, trading our critical thinking for the intoxicating rush of scripted retribution. The true danger of the Judge Boyd phenomenon lies not in the entertainment itself, but in the slow, silent erosion of our expectations for reality. When millions of people consume these scripted cold judgments daily, they begin to develop a distorted benchmark for what justice should look like. This is perceptual overlap. Over time, the viewer's brain stops asking, "Is this legal?" and starts asking, "Why isn't my local judge as aggressive as Judge Boyd?" We are being conditioned to believe that justice is only valid if it is cinematic, loud, and humiliating. We are trading the slow, careful deliberation of constitutional rights for the fast-paced, dopamine-heavy satisfaction of a well-timed viral clip. This shift in perception creates a dangerous accountability vacuum in our real-world political and judicial thinking. In the Boydverse, there is no such thing as a wrongful conviction or a nuanced defense. The script ensures that every target is deserving of their fate. This binary view of morality, the idea that the world is divided strictly into righteous punishers and evildoers, is a hallmark of extremist thinking. By simplifying the complexities of human behavior into a 10-minute video, these narratives strip away the very essence of the law, the presumption of innocence. When we applaud Judge Boyd for silencing a defendant, we are unknowingly applauding the removal of our own right to be heard. We are cheering for the destruction of the shield that protects us all, simply because it makes for a more satisfying video. Furthermore, consider the performance of patriotism embedded in these clips. The presence of the flag and the gavel implies that this scripted dominance is the American way. It weaponizes national symbols to validate a form of justice that is actually antithetical to the principles of a fair trial. The audience isn't just watching a play, they are being indoctrinated into a culture of performative justice, where the appearance of power is more important than the substance of the law. As we continue to blur the lines between courtroom fiction and judicial reality, we risk reaching a point where we can no longer tell the difference between a guardian of the law and a master of ceremonies. The gavel of Judge Boyd is not striking a desk. It is striking the foundation of our ability to think critically about the very institutions that govern our lives. The emergence of Judge Boyd is not merely a creative choice, it is a mathematical inevitability. We must analyze the algorithmic feedback loop that sustains this persona. Social media algorithms are designed to prioritize high arousal emotions, specifically anger, indignation, and the satisfaction of seeing justice served. When a video of a cold, unyielding judge goes viral, the algorithm interprets this as a universal human desire for absolute authority. It then feeds more of this content to millions, creating a self-fulfilling prophecy where the simulation of power becomes the most consumed form of truth. In this digital ecosystem, Judge Boyd is not just a character, he is a product of our collective engagement data, a deity carved out of binary code to satisfy our darkest cravings for retribution. This leads to the phenomenon of moral polarization. Because these scripted trials are edited for maximum impact, they remove the nuances of human struggle, leaving only the binary of guilty versus righteous. When we consume this daily, our brains begin to mirror the algorithm. We stop looking for restoration and start looking for destruction. We begin to judge our neighbors, our colleagues, and our families with the same cold, unforgiving gaze that Judge Boyd directs at his actors. The digital judge becomes an internal voice, a harsh, scripted critic that demands immediate punishment for every perceived slight. We are unknowingly outsourcing our conscience to a persona designed by content strategists to maximize watch time. Furthermore, we must examine the commercialization of contempt. Every strike of the gavel in a Judge Boyd video is a monetization event. Your outrage is a currency. Your sense of justice is being harvested to sell advertisements. By wrapping this commercial intent in the sacred robes of the judiciary, the creators have achieved the ultimate deception. They have made the exploitation of human anger look like a public service. We are witnessing the birth of a new kind of authority, one that doesn't answer to a constitution or a Supreme Court, but to the engagement rate. As we move into this future, the line between a courtroom and a studio disappears entirely. The gavel no longer represents the law, it represents the hook, the click, and the profit. We are no longer citizens seeking justice. We are consumers of a high-definition execution, cheering for a judge who exists only because we refuse to look away. We have traveled through the anatomy of a digital illusion, deconstructing the robes, the gavel, and the scripted fury of Judge Boyd. Now, we arrive at the final question. Where do we go from here? The gavel has fallen, the video has ended, and the algorithm is already preparing the next dose of outrage for you. But before you scroll, you must recognize the psychological contract you just signed. By consuming this content as truth, you have allowed a production team to become the architects of your moral compass. You have traded the difficult, often frustrating pursuit of real-world justice for the instant gratification of a televised lie. This is the moment of awakening. The coldest judgment isn't the one delivered on screen. It is the judgment you must now pass on your own media literacy. We must stop seeking heroes in high-definition scripts. Real justice does not happen in 10 minutes, and it is rarely satisfying to watch. It is a slow, grinding process of evidence, due process, and human rights, the very things that Judge Boyd's narrative is designed to bypass. When we demand that our real-world leaders and judges act like these fictional characters, we are asking for authoritarianism disguised as accountability. We are asking for a world where the loud and the powerful decide who is good and who is evil based on who can generate the most likes. True power doesn't come from a wooden hammer. It comes from the ability of a citizen to think critically, to question the source, and to refuse to be manipulated by an aesthetic of authority. As you close this video, remember that the most powerful courtroom in the world is the one inside your own mind. You are the judge of what you perceive. You are the jury for the information you accept. Don't let the digital judges of the internet silence your reason. The next time you see a figure of absolute power delivering a perfect cinematic sentence, ask yourself, who wrote this? Who profits from my anger? And most importantly, is this justice or is it just a performance? The simulation only works if you keep your eyes closed. It's time to wake up, look past the black robe, and realize that the only person with the power to change reality is the one holding the phone. The trial of your attention is over. The verdict is yours.